The novel is divided into two parts, and they're quite different from each other. The first one is a self-contained, almost a novella, a self-contained piece of writing that is closed upon itself. The second part is open, almost like a set of short stories that are linked, but the framing device, instead of being in the foreground, is in the background. And the framing device is actually the characters that are in the first part of the novel. The structure is complex and very interesting. But in one of the sections of the second part, the Gandhi Tati Bone Setter section, there are allusions made to folk tales, and in fact a folk tale is actually retold. A delightful folk tale is retold in total in this section. The section itself has the feel of a folk tale, despite the elements of the modern world that intrude, things like references to SUVs, WhatsApp, YouTube, all this kind of thing. It doesn't adulterate or attenuate the force of the folktale aspects of this section. So I'm interested to know how you feel about the role of folk tales as echoes or shadows that can be used by modern writers. Do modern writers consciously tune themselves into folk tales? Did you do that? Did you use a folktale structure consciously, or simply was this a natural result of your innate storytelling skills?
This is another very perceptive question. I am grateful for the opportunity to think on this. As I was saying in my previous answer, apart from wordplay, the understatement is an important tool for my writing, and I think it helps build intrigue and also gives a greater authority to the reader to employ one's faculties to enrich the reading experience. And the story within a story is a characteristic feature of Indian storytelling traditions, particularly the Panchatantra. And our great epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, are also labyrinths of stories. While there is one dominant plot thread throughout, there are hundreds and hundreds of lateral branches, and each story is of epic proportions in itself. So all that is part of my memory of my upbringing, and so I decided to use that here, particularly when I want to make a political statement or a social statement without wanting to be explicit or eloquent. I've employed a folk tale or even poem for that matter. You mentioned the folk tale in the chapter Bone Setter, but even in the other chapters in Bhagirathi and in Blue Barrel, I have made use of mythology, the relationships, the interactions between the characters in these stories are inspired by mythical stories, and their names also kind of hint at that. So these are ways of enriching it and providing a conduit for the story to move forward without having to blurt everything out explicitly. And poetry also, like I was saying, is poetry. It has abstraction and understatement inbuilt in it, and it's I thought it's a very powerful tool in making connections, like a ligament between parts, where you just want to not state everything out in the open. You want to show rather than tell, for which folk tales, mythology, poetry, all of that can be used in an effective way. And you're right, it's a modern story. It's set in contemporary times, so I had to talk about the things we use, YouTube and WhatsApp and SUVs and all of that. Um, but ultimately, it's a story about human relationships. Um, and I thought, what better than our traditional storytelling methods to talk about such things.